Would you like to say hello to your constituents, also Korean American community here in Los Angeles?
Sure, I'll look right into the camera and say hello. This is Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell. So honored to represent the 13th District on the Los Angeles City Council, and so privileged and honored to represent at least 5,000 voters in the 13th District of Korean American descent, and thousands of family members in addition to that. It is the diversity of the city of Los Angeles that really makes us one of the most special places in the world. So I honor that and I celebrate that every day in my work. Great to be with you.
Last time we were told that you opened up a KakaoTalk account for Korean Americans, also constituents out there.
Yes.
What kind of message are you getting? Do you remember anything special, or is just can't get out of your mind?
We're just getting lots of support from the community, and I believe it's because our priorities are aligned. We all want safe, livable neighborhoods, and that's going to be really important, and that takes work. It takes work day in and day out. So I think that's what we're hearing more than anything else. And a lot of support, go get them, things like that. So it feels good.
I see. If you could just pinpoint one thing that you think you achieved and also so proud of during this second term.
I took a leadership role in a lot of the protections that kept Angelenos housed, fed, and employed. I started with my $1 million grant early on in the pandemic that was specific for renters who lived in the 13th District. And at that time it was a small grant, but it helped. We reprioritized all of our discretionary funding. I did grants for small theaters, small businesses. We helped nearly 200 small businesses with $5,000 grants. And the work that we did in my office led to a citywide subsidy for renters and landlords who were in trouble paying their mortgages, and of course renters who were in arrears for paying their rent. And that totaled well over $300 million in the height of the pandemic. We then rolled out vaccines out of my office. I did vaccine clinics. To this day, we do food distributions every single week, and we pay that out of our discretionary funding. So it's initiatives like this during the pandemic that showed what an important place I had on this Los Angeles City Council, because none of us knew how long it was going to last. No one alive had ever experienced a pandemic. So that's a very proud moment for me, just making sure that the city stayed solvent. We've balanced 2 budgets since the pandemic, and we're poised for a strong economic recovery, and the budget outlook looks pretty good for next year as well. So there's that, and we just never stopped delivering the positive change that we're bringing to our district. We opened bridges across the river. We never stopped the basic fundamental projects that constituents of the 13th want to see, making neighborhoods safer for pedestrians everywhere, widening sidewalks, adding more signalized crosswalks to make it safer to walk. All of the things that constituents need, we kept up regardless of the pandemic.
What could have been, or should have been, would have been done better if you think throughout the second term? A lot of things happened: pandemic, crisis, economic, financial issues. What do you think could have been or should have been better in terms of you in your office and also your staff members?
Gosh, we worked so hard every day and continue to do so. I would say this: what could we have done better, staff and myself? It's what I ask every day of the week. I am a reflective person. We're mission driven. So what I try to do every single day is ask myself, how can I be better at serving the public in my role as council member? How can my team be better at delivering services in the district? How can my legislative team be better at delivering good policy? So it's not a reflection of where we came short. It's a reflection of let's just get better at what we do every single day. And I think that the fact that we've produced more covenanted affordable housing and just housing in general than any other council district, with the exception of perhaps 14 and 1, we've really helped set the stage and set the example for other council districts. So I want to be better at leading by example.
November election is just around the corner, as we all know, and we still have to look at numbers from the primary. How would you like to interpret those numbers from primary? What does the number tell you and tell us?
That number from the primary tells me that we have to work harder. Anytime you believe in something passionately the way that I do, and you get a reality check, that means that we have to try harder, be better at our game. Now, I had 4 challengers. 3 of them were very well funded. And so we know that that was going to be a factor going into the primary. We also know that there is and was an anti-incumbency sort of energy because people are concerned about the city of Los Angeles. And so I'm working hard to address those issues, but also to share with people that I am aligned with what the majority of Angelenos and the majority of the residents that I represent want in the city: safer streets, safer neighborhoods, cleaner air, renewable energy, and addressing the climate crises and climate change, which I do through my leadership on the committee that I chair, and materially and spiritually and morally addressing the homelessness crises, which the recent numbers bear out that we're having great success in my district, with a 23% reduction in homelessness in the 13th over 2 years, and that's across the district. And in Hollywood alone, 57%. But those percentages, those successes don't matter if you're directly being impacted by some of these issues. So that's why we're putting our resources and our policy work to continue addressing these issues. And I think that's what people want to see, and more people are going to realize that than did perhaps in the primary.
Were you able to call Stephen or Albert for any kind of cooperation?
Well, Stephen, do you mean my challenger, Steve Johnson? Yes, he came aboard, and he's campaigning with me because we're aligned on safe neighborhoods, and we share many of the same communities. And he's a neighbor in Atwater Village, and I live in Glassell Park, so we're definitely aligned.
I see. 5,000 current Americans in your district. I mean, there are a lot of issues: security, homeless, crime, traffic. What do you think is their best interest or things they pay attention to in the district, and how would you like to address it?
Mm-hmm. Well, especially within the context of an election, I am a big proponent of public safety, of law enforcement. I'm also a big proponent of keeping all the departments accountable, including the police department. And so I've always done that. I am not supportive of abolishing the police, which my opponent is. I'm not supportive of anything goes on city sidewalks and no regulation of any kind anywhere, including around schools and daycare centers. My challenger doesn't believe in regulating the public right-of-way at all. And the reason I feel confident in our approach is that we're standing up more housing solutions than ever before, more places for people to go inside than ever before. Just the whole sort of spectrum of shelter and temporary and transitional housing options. So those are some really big distinctions. And I stood up the city's first pilot project of an unarmed response so that police officers no longer attend to an issue if it's someone experiencing homelessness who's in distress. Those 911 emergency calls for service are dispatched to my outreach teams who are professionals in that space, who have the lived experience themselves. And that's part of the reason our success in our reduction of homelessness in Hollywood. And I now plan to take that pilot project citywide. and create a citywide Office of Unarmed Response. So just in a 4-month period earlier this year, over 500 calls were diverted, and that means more cops on the streets fighting and deterring crime. So that's what people want to see, that's what I want to see. And my challenger has criticized the pilot project as well. And it's because he doesn't know the districts. He's been absent, he never lived here before. And so I think my constituents realize that someone with knowledge and the know-how to make things happen is probably a better representative on their behalf.
Also, Korean Americans are wondering if they will still see this gas stove in the the Korean restaurants in the next, years to come. How is it being discussed in the city council, and what's your position?
So I'm leading the city in a clean energy future, but I'm a public servant. I'm not an ideologue. I am not in the position, nor will I be put in the position of picking winners and losers. I come from the private sector. I know what makes the economy work, and it's business, it's employment, it's jobs, it's entrepreneurs. So I will be able to share really great news very soon as we move forward on adopting our decarbonization plan as it relates to some of the Korean and cultural cuisine that requires live flames. And so I think we're going to work that out. I think the community is going to be very pleased.
So it's going to be permanent, not temporarily permanent.
Well, I think we're finalizing the policy, but I am here in support of the small business community because I realize the importance of the business community, and it's where I made my living for most of my adult life.
As a representative of this district that has many Korean Americans, now people are asking the question about District 10, CD10. Mm-hmm. What does the verdict of the Mark Little Thomas mean to us? And also, a lot of constituents and also voters out there were expecting this special election for the CD10. Mm-hmm. Where is it going? And also, what is going to happen with this verdict that we're expecting, whether it is guilty or not?
Right. Well, we'll know very soon what our next steps are going to be. The trial, I understand, starts in November, I think mid-November. We'll see what happens before then or during the trial, how long it may last, what kind of recesses or pauses there might be. We're not sure of what Mark Ridley Thomas's future is going to bring. So if he is acquitted, if it goes to trial and he's acquitted of all charges, that means he is our the council member for the 10th District. If that is not the case, or there's some sort of plea or whatever may happen, then that means that he will be removed from the office, and that also means that there's over 2 years of someone that may or may not have been elected to serve the 10th District. If passed as prologue, it's likely to result in a special election. That's the most likely outcome should his case be resolved in November or December and he's removed from office. The most likely scenario is a special election.
Does the council have the discretion that some of the small cities, they just decide, it'll take a lot of manpower, lots of money, we'll just appoint something? Is that going to happen? Is that possibly happening in the city council?
I would say it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but the fact that there will be 2 years remaining in the term lessens the chance of that. It would be one thing if it were a year or less, right, of a term. That could factor into the decision making of the body. But if there are 2 years or close to 2 years left in a term, that will influence because representation by democracy is something that we all hold near and dear. I certainly do. So I would suggest that discussion will happen once we know what the outcome is in November or December.
I see. Well, last but not least, I would like you to talk to our constituents,
okay,
your constituents, about the upcoming election.
Right. So the general election is November the 8th, and the contrast and the choice, very clear. I am a public servant who believes in and loves this district. I know the neighborhoods very well. I know my constituencies. We have pulled the levers of government now for 2 terms and made things work for the communities. I have a very strong plan for the next term. That's what matters the most. And my experience and the talent of the team that I have will help me execute that plan, along with the collaboration I have of my colleagues and city leadership. So the fact that my focus is jobs and the recovery from COVID and the economy, that it is livable, safe neighborhoods, addressing the climate crises, while also doing things like planting thousands of street trees to reduce the heat island effect and watering them, doing a watering contract so they stay alive across my district is important. And our successes in addressing the housing crises and the homelessness crises, remarkable when compared to any other council district, where we've built over 4,300 units of covenant supportive housing, where 29% of all the housing under construction in the 13th district is covenanted affordable housing, which Angelenos need. So we're going to do a whole lot more of that while I lead the city in our environmental restoration, addressing climate change, electrifying our grid. Really important initiatives that are imperatives, really, that take experience. And in contrast, my challenger has been absent all these years when I've been in office, never lived here before, moved here, was placed here to run for the seat, doesn't know the districts, and has some very dangerous, unworkable policy proposals, like eliminating the police department. He's more of an ideological, dogmatic person running to take the seat. And I believe that we need a true public servant in this space who understands our neighborhoods and believes in serving and not picking winners and losers and not ignoring entire groups of people and only paying attention to the folks who are on your side. He already skipped a debate last week. At the last minute he canceled, didn't show up. We've had 2 side-by-side comparisons, and his policies are unworkable and indefensible, and I think that's why he skipped the debate, because he knows that the more we're compared to each other, the worse he looks and the less capable he looks, because he is not capable to serve this position. So I love this city, I love this district, I am a public servant ready to continue and really just have the greatest success over the next 4 years. It's going to be a very critical time in the city's history, with the climate change leading to the 2028 Olympics, which I chair that committee. I know the athletes, I know the organizers. I know how to bring a successful Olympic Games here because I work with the professionals who do that. And just the day-to-day of making our city hall function better and working with our next mayor, whomever that may be, they're going to need someone like me in office to collaborate and help them as well. It's going to be an all hands on deck over the next 4 years across all jurisdictions and across all of the offices. We cannot afford to have someone come into office and is only trying to start some sort of revolution. What we need is a steady hand and not chaos. I have that steady hand, I have the experience, I've got the plan, and I thank you so much for supporting me for re-election on November 8th, leading up to November 8th of this year.